Are you working on anything top secret that we can't know about yet?
That's a good question. A lot of people think that, but no, everything, all these investigations and experiments we're working on that Peggy was talking about earlier, the scientists get all the data. We're not keeping anything from them or from anybody else. There was a day where there were some somewhat secret missions back in the early days of the space program, but not anymore. We like to share our data so that everybody on Earth can benefit.
Well, it looks like we may have a young Secureteam fan here. What's up, guys? Tyler here with Secureteam. This video was emailed over to me by a viewer of an educational question and answer session between some astronauts aboard the International Space Station and some young children from an elementary school in Anaheim, California. And so the original video, which I'll link to down below, is called Space Station Crew Members Discuss Life in Space with California Students. And so these children are speaking via a live feed with Commander Shane Kimbrough and Flight Engineer Peggy Whitson, who are aboard the orbital laboratory during this in-flight educational event, which occurred on April 3rd, which is today, or as I'm recording this, is today. And I'm sure that NASA and these astronauts truly do love events like this because they get all of these softball questions. And of course, these are the types of questions you would expect from children. And so in this 20-minute video, we have all of these different kids coming up asking things like, what do you do for fun in space? Easy, simple questions that NASA and the spokesman for NASA are more than happy to answer. But then we have this kid that gets up to the microphone, a true warrior who really wants to get down to the nitty-gritty and ask the tough questions. And just look at the fire in this kid's eyes. He knows that something is not right with these astronauts. We're not being told everything. And so he gets up and he asks the very simple question, are you working on anything top secret that the public doesn't know about? And immediately, I was pretty shocked at such a question coming from such a young man at this elementary school. You wouldn't expect something like that. So I think, first of all, this just proves that this information and these videos that we're putting out in this research and just this overall idea that NASA and other space agencies have not been telling us the entire truth. And that this information that we often talk about here on this channel has obviously trickled down into these younger generations. And so, yeah, I mean, I was completely shocked to see a kid ask such a question. And you can see on the faces of the astronauts sort of these nervous smiles, which, indicated that they were probably stumped to hear such a question as well. But the kid asked it, he got up there, and I commend this kid. I love it. And so immediately we get a very softball answer to a very real question. And so the commander, with his condescending smile, tells this child,
That's a good question. A lot of people think that, but no, everything, all these investigations and experiments we're working on that Peggy was talking about earlier, the scientists get all the data. We're not keeping anything from them or from anybody else. There was a day where there were some somewhat secret missions back in the early days of the space program, but not anymore. We like to share our data so that everybody on Earth can benefit.
So let's break this down here. So first we get this sort of condescending smile, and immediately, do you see how the flight engineer, Peggy Whitson, immediately looks to the side here? There's a video on YouTube which talks about micro expressions and things that happen when someone is being deceitful. Whether this is looking to the side or looking away, looking to the ground, there's a bunch of different expressions that happen when you are not being completely forthcoming. But I noticed her looking away almost the entire time that the commander is answering this question. And again, they look to have this sort of nervous look, the way they shift their eyes. And obviously, they're not telling the whole truth. We've proven that on this channel. We've shown you videos of UFO activity happening out the very windows behind these astronauts as they're speaking, and then you hear them come out later on and say, no, we're not hiding anything, we've never seen UFO activity while in space, which is a bold-faced lie, and we've even had former astronauts come out and admit that they would often see strange, unidentified activity happening and that they were told to keep quiet about it. So there's a strict policy of not talking about this stuff when it happens to the public. So the commander continues on that that's a good question, and that a lot of people think that, which is also interesting because he's correct. A lot of people do believe that NASA is hiding things and operating these secret missions and these secret things. And obviously, the commander is well aware that people believe that they are being untruthful. And so he goes on to say that all of these investigations and all of this data they receive from the scientists, and they don't keep anything from the public. Then elaborating that, however, there was a day when there were some, quote, semi-secret missions in the early days of the space program that occurred, but not anymore, and that they are completely transparent with the people of Earth because they want everybody to benefit from this information. Look at this kid's face as he walks away from the mic. He's probably thinking, bullshit. And then another kid comes up and, what do you do for fun? And the softball questions continue. So they dodged a bullet with this one, but I just found it very interesting that a kid so young would for once ask a legitimate question that we've been trying to answer for years now. And it's obvious that they're lying. I mean, we know they're lying. And I think their body language shows that. And I don't think this little kid bought it for 1 second, the answer that they gave. But this clip, it kind of ties in to what I want to talk about in today's video. The main point I want to talk about today is the ongoing cover-up of UFO activity and the way that this cover-up has progressed over the years. More to the point, the code words that have been installed in order to further said cover-up. Now, for years, and as far back as we can remember when UFO sightings were first reported, first came into the mainstream, as far back as we can tell, and as quickly as these UFO sightings occurred, the government and the space agencies were just as quick to come forth and attempt to debunk these sightings or cover them up. And they would use terms such as swamp gas, or light reflecting off of Venus, or weather balloons, or all of these other nonsensical answers in order to fool people into thinking that what they were seeing was natural and not to worry about it. And as the years have gone by and we've gotten more technologically advanced, in today's world, when you see a UFO, and I've experienced this on the channel, and many of you likely have too, you've seen this happening, but no longer are we seeing NASA or skeptics or people who simply don't believe in UFOs referring to these sightings as simply swamp gas or weather balloons. Now, the famous word, or the new cover-up term, as I like to call it, that is used every time we report on a UFO sighting is, without fail, the word drone. As in, oh, it's a drone. It's likely a drone. It's obviously a drone. And this is the new code word. And no doubt, as the years have progressed, especially in the last 2 years, we have seen a surge in the popularity and the technological advancement of drone technology, where it's no longer this sort of obscure technology only being utilized by the military, but is now something that is available in your local hobby shop, on Amazon or Toys R Us, where you can go in, you can purchase a drone, and you can fly it. And the fact that this has happened has truly begun to work against us and work for the government and the space agencies, because drones came into the limelight at a very perfect time, where UFO research channels and outlets like ours have been exploding in popularity, and UFO sightings in general and strange things happening all over the world and in space have been increasing and have been getting exposure like never before. There are more camera phones out there than ever before, and indeed, more UFO sightings. We are all interconnected thanks to the internet, thanks to camera and video technology, and with the advancement of drones, this has become the new code word. When you hear a UFO sighting, it's very similar to the way in which the mainstream media has coined and used to death the term fake news, where any time an alternative news outlet publishes a story that is contrary and opposite to the agenda of the real people in power, well, it's simply dubbed fake news. And that is the go-to term for anyone you don't agree with. Oh, it's just fake news. Don't believe that. Haven't you heard it's a fake news website or it's a fake news channel? It's happened here with Secureteam. And it's been a very effective tactic for those who want to discredit someone that doesn't agree with their personal agenda. And as I've been researching and following the news over the years, the use of the word drone in order to replace UFOs has been widespread. I recently discovered an article, and I've spoken about this before, about all of the airliners and the pilots who over the years have encountered UFOs, and not just UFOs, but craft, things that have followed them, things that have played chicken with their planes, even damaged their planes before, things that look like saucers, triangular craft, and even glowing fireballs. We're not talking about drones here, but every time you see an article about a plane coming into contact with one of these UFOs, it is immediately labeled as a drone. As you're seeing here in this new article from The Guardian that was published on March 31st, an unidentified object flew within the wingspan of a plane approaching Heathrow Airport. And although the title says drone, it couldn't be further from the truth. They have no idea what this object was that nearly caused this plane to crash. And the article goes on to talk about the endless amount of near misses with these unidentified objects. And it goes on to talk about how commercial jet pilots normally report these UFO sightings in one of two categories. The first being Category A incidents, which is the most serious and relates to near misses involving unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, which the article then states are also known as drones. So apparently, and according to this article, any unidentified object or unmanned aerial vehicle is a drone. All right, and again, this is what I'm talking about. And I don't think that some of these news outlets are purposely attempting to call every UFO a drone, but I think that, again, this type of terminology has seeped in to the mainstream media, much like the fake news term did, wherein which every time there is a strange incident that involves an unidentified object, then it must be a drone. And these articles go on to describe all of these incidents where planes have almost collided with these things and had to go into nosedives to avoid being hit. And in this particular case, in this article, the investigation concluded that the drone, as they're calling it, was, quote, a blue and disc-like craft that appeared to be custom-made rather than a commercially available model. Now, mind you, they have no evidence that this in fact was a drone, and from everything I've read in this article, the object that this particular plane encountered was much larger than your standard commercially available drones, and that it was disc-like, which again is very different in shape from most commercially available drones. And yet here they are calling it a drone when they have no clue what it was. And it goes on to talk about other incidents of all of these planes encountering these unidentified objects, near misses, and not only that, but that these UFOs are being seen at an altitude that is, quote, surprising pilots who had no time to react. During one near miss, a pilot was quoted as saying, "Was that a drone at 10,000 feet?" And for those of you who are not familiar with drones, large drones are not permitted to fly above 120 meters or close to airports. And even the most custom-designed just awesome, epic drone ever built, usually don't go higher than 6 or 7 or 8,000 feet. And yet these airline pilots are encountering these craft at 10,000 feet, 20,000 feet, 30,000 feet, and yes, some of the highest, upwards of almost 50,000 feet. And, throughout this article, it talks about all of these incidents where these, quote, drones are described as being very large and that they do not look like your standard drone, and that they are also being seen at an altitude much higher than what is available with your standard, even custom drones of today. Now, recently there was a popular mechanics article about a drone that had supposedly broken the record and the law by allegedly flying to 11,000 feet. And the story was about a European drone hobbyist who apparently flew a DJI Phantom 2 to a record 11,000 feet up, which is extremely high for drones. Again, it was a record breaker if it happened. However, most drones have a regulation limit built into their software of around 500 feet. But you are not allowed to fly these near airliners or higher than a certain level, and you're certainly not allowed to fly them near airports. So the first question is, who are all of these people that are flying these drones, risking jail time and possibly risking a mid-air collision with these airliners, killing potentially hundreds of people, and yet none of the owners of these drones are ever traced or located, nor are these drones actually found out to be drones at all. It's just the word that is used, because it's much easier than saying UFO and looking like you're out of your mind. Now, in this case, the people who looked at that footage said that this drone actually looked like it didn't really surpass more than 6,500 feet, which is nowhere near the 11,000 feet marker that was alleged. But nonetheless, this is just to show you guys that most of these near collisions and UFO reports that are being dubbed as drones are completely contradicted when you find out the altitude that these things are being seen much higher than any commercial or custom drone is able to fly to. And it goes back to the fact that drone is the new term for UFO. And I understand why. It's very easy to call something a drone, which, allows you to stay in your happy little place and not have to worry that, hey, maybe there are otherworldly craft in our skies. But do not be fooled, because we've done plenty of videos talking about these pilots and these incidents where planes have been damaged. World War II pilots talking about their experiences with Foo Fighters, which was the code name for these things back during the World Wars, that would tag along with their planes in ways that couldn't be explained by physics. We've had planes and pilots completely vanish, as was with the very famous case of Frederick Valentik, who back in 1978 was flying over the ocean near Australia when he encountered an unidentified flying object that was not natural, and he even radioed back to tower that this thing looked like a massive metallic disc with lights on it, and that was maneuvering in such a way that there was no way it could have been a man-made craft. And just moments after, the radio communication from the pilot went dark, and he was never seen again. And it's called the Valentik case, and I'll post some links down below. I've done videos on this before, but again, it's one of the most eerie, mysterious UFO abduction cases ever. Not only was there a sighting from this pilot, but he vanished afterwards, as did his plane. And these types of sightings go on and on. A former pilot who flew President Obama had his own encounter in the late 80s, where he described something that was not of this earth, could not be explained, and they go on and on. So I ask all of you to keep an open mind and to not give in to this new terminology that is being used to cleverly discredit the UFO phenomenon, because this has been going on for many years before drones ever existed, and will continue to, long after they're no longer fun to play with anymore. I assure you that, and we will be right here to report on it. So thank you guys for stopping by today. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe on your way out. I really appreciate it. And stay tuned, because I've got another video in the works as we speak, and I will have it up later tonight. So we're going to have 2 videos today. All right, so thank you guys again, and I will see you back in just a bit.